Hey everyone, this is your host Aditya, and we're back with another tutorial in the VRA Automation tutorial series. This video will cover the role-based user administration or RBAC, as well as the different responsibilities associated with these roles. User permissions are controlled by VRA Automation by using roles. The roles that a user has been assigned defines the tasks that it will be able to perform. Even the way the portal appears to a user depends upon the roles that it has been assigned. So, the portal can appear different for each user based on the defined roles for that user. Each user can be assigned one or more roles associated with their account based upon the responsibilities that they have. If the roles are what that are allowing VRLS automation to achieve such great level of management, maybe we should pay attention to them. In the words of Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibilities. So let's dig into what are the different roles in VRLS automation and what all responsibilities come with them. The VRLS automation roles can be divided into two parts, the system-wide roles and the tenant-wide roles. As you could have guessed from the mentioned names, if you have an IQ of above 42, that these classification of roles also define the level of management that role is providing. So generally all user roles are assigned in the context of a specific tenant, but some roles in the default tenant can make changes to the system-wide configuration which will apply to multiple tenants. The system-wide roles are typically assigned to an IT system administrator. System-wide roles are system administrator. Now, this is the person that will install VRLS automation as well as ensures its availability to other users. Its total set of responsibilities are: it creates tenants, configures tenant identity stores, assigns IAS administrator role, assigns tenant administrator role, configures the system's default branding. So basically what it is doing here is that it's configuring the default branding for all the tenants present inside the environment. And by branding, we mean the look and feel of the environment. Of course, the different tenants present in the environment can choose to customize the way their tenant appears individually. Configures the system default notification provider, just as in the case what it did for branding regarding the different tenants. It does the same thing here with the notification providers. It sets up a default notification provider which can be changed by different tenants. They can completely choose to use a different notification provider for their own tenant. It monitors the system event logs, which do not include the infrastructure as a service logs. It configures the VRAS orchestrator server. The next system-wide role that we have is the IAS administrator. IAS administrators manage cloud, virtual, networking, and storage infrastructure at the system level. They create and manage endpoints and credentials and monitor IAS logs. IAS administrators organize infrastructure into tenant-level fabric groups while appointing the fabric administrator that are in turn responsible for allocating resources within each tenant through reservation and reservation storage and networking policies. So, if you were to sum up the set of responsibilities that the IAS administrator has, you could say that they create and manage endpoints, they create and manage fabric groups, they manage endpoint credentials, and they monitor IAS specific logs. The role of the IAS administrator is designated by the system administrator while the system administrator is creating the tenant, or you could say configuring it. These are the two system-wide roles that exist in VRA's automation. Changes made by them in the default tenant will reflect for all tenants by default. Now, that was some good wordplay, wasn't it? Now let us discuss the different tenant-wide roles and the responsibilities associated with them. First up, we have the tenant administrator. Normally, this role is assigned to an IT admin or a business manager who is responsible for a tenant. The role is assigned by the system admin at the time of creation of a tenant. The tenant admin can then assign this role to other users in the tenant at any point of time. Tenant administrators configure VRA's automation for the needs of their organization. They are the one responsible for user and group management, tenant branding and notifications, and business policies such as approvals and entitlements. They also track resource usage by all users within the tenant and initiate reclamation requests for virtual machines. So let us say if we were to sum up the task performed by the tenant administrator, this is what it would look like. It customizes the tenant branding. Now we all know that the default tenant branding is configured by the system administrator inside the default tenant. But what will happen if you say that your organization did not like the default tenant branding that has been set by the system administrator? You can change the look and feel of your particular tenant if you are a tenant administrator. You can also manage identity stores. Similarly, the default identity stores were set by the system administrator inside the default tenant, but you can set the different identity stores that you want to have inside your own tenant. You can manage the user and the group roles that needs to be assigned inside your own tenant. You can create custom groups. Now, to make you understand what custom groups are, they are a set of users that may come from the identity store that you have synced with inside your tenant or the local users, and it just basically creates a group of users that can be utilized again and again. Next up, we have the notification providers. Same as the tenant identity stores and the tenant branding, even though these notification providers have been set up by the system administrator inside the default tenant, you can like set them on your own inside your own tenant. You can enable notification scenarios for tenant users. Now this topic, some of these topics I'm not going to explain right now because they require a complete tutorial of their own. So just remember that these topics are something that these things are something that the tenant administrator or the other roles can do, but we'll make sure that each and everything that has been said in these tutorials is covered in the later ones. And that will only be done if they require a tutorial of their own. Otherwise, I'm going to explain them right here and right now. So you can enable the notification scenarios for tenant users. You can configure VRA's orchestrator servers, plugins, and workflows for XaaS. You can create and manage catalog services. You can manage the catalog items that are going to be associated with these catalog services. You can manage the actions that are going to be performed on these catalog items that have been linked to these catalog services. You can create and manage entitlements. You can create and manage approval policies. You can monitor the tenant machines and you can send reclamation requests according to them. Now, some of these topics you may not have understood as of now, and they indeed require a proper explanation. But rest assured that everything mentioned here will be covered in one tutorial or another. Right now, you need to have a broad understanding of the responsibilities associated with each role so that when we discuss these items in the near future, you have a reference point that you have heard of it before. That was enough ranting. It's time that we discuss the next role, and that will be your Fabric Administrator. Now let us discuss the Fabric Administrator. It is designated by the IES admin while creating or editing a Fabric group. It manages physical machines and compute resources assigned to their Fabric groups and creates and manages the reservations and policies associated with those resources within the scope of their tenant. They also manage property groups, machine prefixes, and the property dictionary that are used across all tenants and business groups. If you add a system-wide role to the Fabric administrator, like the system admin or the IES admin, it will be able to create reservations for any of the tenants and not only for its own. Now let us discuss the complete set of responsibilities for the Fabric administrator. It manages property groups. Now, these property groups are basically the group of custom properties that are present inside the vRealize automation. It manages the computer resources that are coming from the endpoints that were created by the IAS administrator. It manages network profiles, Amazon EBS volume and key pairs, machine prefixes, property dictionary, and it creates and manages reservations and reservation policies in their own tenant. I know these all are different and difficult terms that you haven't heard of before, but these will surely be covered in our upcoming tutorials. The next item on our plate that needs to be discussed are the architect roles. An architect is an umbrella term used for the individuals that are responsible to create blueprint components and assembling the blueprints that define catalog items for consumers to request from the service catalog. So basically, what these architects are doing is they're creating blueprints, which when published become the catalog items, which in turn are consumed by the end users. So there are four of them. First up, we have the infrastructure architect who is responsible for creating and managing machine blueprints as well as composite blueprints. Next up, we have the application architects who are responsible for assembling and managing composite blueprints. The software architects are responsible for creating application or software blueprints and components. The final type of architects that we have are the XaaS architects that are responsible for using VRA's automation extensibility features to create and define custom resources, actions, and services. Other than that, the XaaS architect can define custom resource types. They can create and publish XaaS blueprints. They can create and manage resource mappings. Also, they can create and publish resource axes. The next tenant-wide role is the catalog administrator. When blueprints that were created by the individuals with architect roles are published, they become catalog items. Then it becomes the responsibility of the catalog administrator to manage these catalog items as well as to create services to attach these catalog items to. Catalog admins manage user access to catalog services, items, and actions by using entitlements and approvals. The full responsibility set for catalog admin would be to create and manage catalog services. They manage catalog items. They also assign icons to actions. Next tenant-wide role is the business group manager. They manage business groups, as you could have guessed from the name. If you're talking about the full set of responsibilities that it has, it can add and delete users within the business group. It can assign the support user role to users in the business group. It can create and manage entitlements for the business group. It can request and manage items on behalf of a user that is part of its business group. It can assign the approval policies for the business group. It can select which approval policies need to be applied over this business group. And those approval policies will trigger whenever a request is being triggered and the approval policies have been applied on that request, then the approver can accept or deny the request, which will affect the provisioning in the long run. It can monitor the resource uses in a business group. This allows it to understand the resource consumption that is done by each and every user that is part of its business group. It can change the machine owner. I need you to remember this one, that the business group manager can change the machine owner. The next set of tenant-wide roles are business group roles. They're designated inside a business group. Let's talk about them. The first one would be the shared access user. Now, this user can run actions on the resources that other business group members deploy, although it cannot initiate a provisioning request. You need to understand that it can run actions on the resources that other business group members can have deployed, but it cannot create a provisioning request of its own. The approval administrator creates and manages the approval policies. The approvers are the one to which are defined in the approval policy as to whom the approval request will go to. These approval policies are defined by the approval administrator or the business group manager for their own business group. And whenever a provisioning request or a change request has been generated, the approval policies associated with that request will send an approval request to an approver, which in turn can accept or deny a request. Next up, we have the support user. The support user can request and manage service catalog items on behalf of other members of the business group. It can also change the machine owner. If you remember from the responsibilities that the business group manager had, the support user and the business group manager user are the only two roles in the whole VRA RBAC system that can change the owner of a machine. Last, we have the business user. The business user can request catalog items to which they have been entitled. If you remember the cloud layers from our previous tutorial, you can easily connect the roles to the cloud layer at which they work. The multitude of roles work at a particular layer, such as the IaaS admin will work at the infrastructure fabric layer. The fabric admin will work at the fabric group layer. The tenant admin will work at the tenant layer. And finally, the business group roles will all work at the business group layer. While we are onto it, let us also look at the way the VRA portal is presented to the users that have some particular roles associated to their account. The design tab is only available to users that have any of the architect roles associated with them. It can be the infrastructure architect, application architect, software, or access architect. The administrator tab is visible to users who need to administer various components of VRA. The infrastructure tab is only available to roles that administer the system configuration of VRA. It is only fully available to the IaaS admin. This was all you needed to know about the different roles and responsibilities associated with them. You need not to mug them up. You just need to understand the standing of each role and what it is supposed to do. Anyhow, perfection comes with practice, and that's what we strive to achieve. See you in the next one. Bye bye.